In a quiet village, where the air smelled of earth and the fields whispered tales only the wind could understand, there stood an old house that had long forgotten the sound of laughter. It was built in the time of another generation, with walls that had witnessed countless sunrises and sunsets. Over the years, it had grown silent, its wooden floors creaking only when the wind had a story to tell, and its windows, once clear, now held the weight of dust and time. The house had been loved once, in the way that only those who are fully present can love, with the embrace of children's laughter echoing through its halls, the scent of dinner wafting from the kitchen, and the warm glow of firelight flickering through its windows. But all that had faded. The laughter had stopped, the dinners were no more, and the firelight no longer flickered. The house had slept beneath the stars. Lena had never seen the house before. She had heard about it in passing conversations, the kind that happen when people think their words don't matter anymore. Her grandmother had spoken of it with a tone that held both fondness and sorrow, as though the house was a dear friend who had drifted away, lost to the rhythm of time. It was not a planned journey. It never was. Lena had been running from something, perhaps the ghosts of her own choices, perhaps from the weight of memories that hadn't yet found a place to rest. And so, one afternoon, she found herself standing at the edge of a road that led her to the village, and there, on the hill, was the house. It stood silently, as if waiting for her. When Lena approached the front door, she noticed the ivy creeping up the stone foundation, the way the windows glimmered faintly as though they remembered the sun. The door was unlocked, as though it had been left open for someone to come back. As she stepped inside, the scent of old wood and dust filled her senses, but there was something else, a lingering warmth, almost as if the house itself had been waiting for her. The floorboards groaned under her feet as she walked through the entryway. The living room looked just as her grandmother had described it, old furniture draped in white cloth, a fireplace that hadn't been lit in decades, and shelves lined with books that had long since turned yellow with age. Yet, there was something unspoken about the house. It felt alive, though in a way that was more spiritual than physical. She wandered from room to room, each one holding its own story. The kitchen still smelled faintly of something comforting, as if a pot of soup had been left to simmer only a moment ago. The dining table was set, as if waiting for the family to return, but the plates were empty, the chairs cold. The upstairs was where she found it, the small bedroom with the faded quilt, the rocking chair by the window, and the small wooden desk where someone once sat to write letters or dreams. And then she saw it. A small, framed picture on the desk. She picked it up carefully, the glass slightly cracked from age. It was a family portrait, a couple with 2 children, standing in front of this very house, smiling with a joy that seemed so tangible that for a moment, Lena could almost hear their voices. She turned the photo over. To our future, who will carry the weight of our love. May you never forget the stars that watched over us. The words were written in delicate handwriting, but the ink had faded, as if time had tried to erase them. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, holding the picture in her hands. She didn't know why, but a deep sadness filled her chest. The house was not just a structure of wood and stone, it was a vessel of memories, of things that had been, of love that had been lost. She realized that the house had not just been waiting for her arrival, it had been waiting for someone to remember, someone to acknowledge the past. As night fell, the house seemed to breathe differently. The shadows deepened, and the moonlight, pale and gentle, slipped through the cracks in the windows, casting soft patterns on the floor. Lena felt as though the house was waking up, and with it, so too were the stories that had been forgotten. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. The stars shimmered, endless and silent, as though they had been waiting too. It was then that Lena understood, the house had been sleeping beneath them all this time. It had held its breath, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right person to remind it of its place in the world. Lena sat down in the rocking chair, the cool night air brushing her face. She felt an overwhelming sense of calm, as if the house was speaking to her without words. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft glow. The walls, once silent, whispered to her. "You are not alone," they seemed to say. "We have all waited here, beneath the stars, for someone to listen. The next morning, Lena awoke to the smell of fresh earth, the sun streaming through the windows. The house had somehow changed overnight. It was as if the years of silence had been peeled away, and in their place, a sense of purpose remained. The rooms were still dusty, the furniture still old, but now there was a life within the walls, a quiet hum that had been there all along, hidden beneath layers of time. Lena had come to the house to escape, to find solace, but what she had found was something much deeper. The house had opened its arms to her, just as it had done for the family in the photograph. It had waited for someone who could see it, not as a relic, but as a living part of the past. And now, it was time for the house to breathe again, time for the stories to return. As days passed, Lena began to care for the house. She cleaned the dust from the shelves, she mended the cracks in the walls, and she began to live there, not as a visitor, but as someone who had always belonged. The house responded. Slowly, the floorboards stopped creaking with loneliness, and the walls no longer sighed with the weight of forgotten years. The house that had slept beneath the stars was awake now, and so was Lena. She began to fill the rooms with new memories, not to replace the old ones, but to honor them. She hung a new picture on the wall, of a girl standing in the same spot where the family once had. She planted a garden outside, and at night, she sat in the rocking chair, watching the stars, remembering the past but looking forward to the future. Years later, when the village had forgotten the stories of the house and the house itself had become a quiet part of the town's folklore, a new family moved in. They found a place that had once been forgotten but was now full of life, full of echoes of love and memories. The house had not just been waiting to be remembered, it had been waiting to give its love to someone who could carry it forward, someone who could see the stars in the quiet moments and believe in the miracles that happened beneath them. The house that had slept beneath the stars had finally found someone to listen. And in return, it gave her the most peaceful sleep of all.